Yeah, I mean, on the other end of the stick, I take my losses with grace too. So my first product was a loss. I took that with grace, and now I'm back, baby.
Welcome back to Worldie Unboxed, the Founders Edition. We're excited to bring you another two-part episode. In this episode, Aaron sits down with Trystin Nance, the visionary founder of Ascentix Innovation Labs. Trystin's company is revolutionizing fitness nutrition with their innovative gummies packed with a unique blend of amino acids designed to support superior muscle growth and nutrient absorption. We'll dive into his journey, the methodology behind his groundbreaking product, and the challenges he's faced in bringing these gummies to market. In part two, Aaron and I will break down the key highlights from Aaron's conversation with Trystin and explore how his insights resonate with our own experiences at worldie. We'll discuss the parallels between launching a revolutionary product in the fitness industry and our journey in footwear. Stay connected with us by joining our community at worldiebrand.com and subscribing to the Worldie YouTube channel for clips and highlights from our conversations. All right, let's talk to Trystin.
All right, cool. You ready?
Yep.
Cool. So can you just walk through your background, what that is, and basically how you got interested in entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life, so I've been really team oriented. Knew I wanted to go to college. Did that. Been in finance. I saw my dad be a consultant, so jumped right into banking and then followed it up with consulting. And I mean, I really honestly don't know what led to this route, but I just always felt like I could do it. So I wanted to test myself, and I jumped straight in head first and, took my lumps on the road. And now we're here, man, just steady grinding.
You feel like being a consultant, you think that helps, or what kind of skills do you think you've gained from being a consultant that apply pretty well to being an entrepreneur?
Ooh, thinking on the fly, honestly, because I don't know if consultants will ever admit this, but 9 times out of 10, we never really have the full picture. So take on a lot of projects, and you're going in there blind, but it's more about a figure it out and get it done type attitude from
Yeah.
what I've seen. Now,
Yeah.
you have very smart people within the industry that have done stuff and don't do it like that. But
Yeah, for sure. No, I feel the same way. I feel like being a consultant, it kind of gives you that confidence of even though I don't know everything, like I have the frameworks or the mindset to be able to figure it out, or at least understand what the issue is and find someone who can actually, do it for me. So that definitely resonates with me. So tell us about your company, what that is, and basically how you got that idea.
yeah, so Ascentix Innovation Labs, just mainly right now, we're only focusing on gummies, but sports nutrition gummies. So what I seen was a not a lack, but it could have been better as far as gummies go in the sports nutrition realm. There really aren't actually any, to be honest. Like a couple, you got your creatine gummy, but I think that's more on the health side. But kind of wanted to do something different. Didn't want to do a white label powder. I think that there are a lot of great powder companies out here already. So like trying to get into that realm would have just been it just didn't fulfill me. So yeah, I mean, just to take it back from the very beginning, went to a supplement store, realized there wasn't no a low calorie snack that had zero sugar. That was actually decent in taste. Walked over to the grocery store, grabbed some sugar-free Jello, and was cooking stuff up in my kitchen. Thought it was a good idea. Tried to commercialize it and went from there. How it came about, though, I don't even know. Honestly, it just it just came together. I'm a big like World of Warcraft guy. Well, I was back in the day whenever I had the time to play. So wanted to do something along with that, and then Dragon Ball Z was kind of the inspiration behind the logo and Ascentix. I mean, it sounded good with the tagline Ascend Beyond. So put them all together and then boom, you got the company.
So would you say that you're the target customer? You're your own target customer?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it might sound selfish, but it's like I built my product for me just because I thought that it was lacking in the market. Now I do also think that it'll benefit other people depending on how you want to look at it, how you want to spin it. But if it's something that I wouldn't even take, I didn't want to put it on the market. So that's kind of how I took the approach toward the whole thing.
And how did you go about validating that there was demand for this thing? Did you go through a process of talking through people kind of like you, or did you think if you have that problem, a lot of other people will have it too? So you just, you know, went ahead without necessarily doing a ton of market or consumer research?
Kind of a mix of both. So I'm in the bodybuilding world, so I know a lot of people in fitness. Whenever I was cooking them out of the kitchen and everything, I took it to people and was like, hey, do you think this would be a good idea? Now, that sample size is probably 20, 25 people, so it's not anything that's like super huge. But at the same time, there was nobody that was like, no, I think that's a stupid idea. It's just the execution on my end that has to be correct.
And throughout this process, has there been maybe like one moment or a couple of moments where something has happened, or maybe someone has said something to you where you've realized, maybe I'm not so crazy. Maybe there really is something to this idea.
Yeah, I'd probably say whenever we got this new formula done and I actually tasted it, whenever we went out to Expo West, we got a lot of good feedback. Now, take that with a grain of salt because I think that everybody is always a lot more nicer whenever it comes to critique in your face versus, random feedback. So once that happened and I was like, okay, we actually have efficacious doses in it, thank God we did it because I've been spending 2 years on it. So it's like that was a breath of fresh air, definitely.
And then you said you've been doing this for 2 years. Have you pivoted at all throughout this process, or has the idea pretty much stayed the same?
The idea stayed the same. The execution has just went from 0 to 100% though. Because whenever we first started, it was more of a passion project. Like, oh, this would be cool. Let me see, kind of like, oh, I'm a entrepreneur. But now it's like I'm actually taking on the full role and actually trying to make this a business and, provide consumers with something that is fully packed with the benefits that we say it is, and it tastes good.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I didn't necessarily realize before I started entrepreneurship is you have to have a really strong why, basically something that drives you every day, because there's a lot of ups and downs. It's pretty hard. So what would you say it is that, what's your why? What is it? What are the things that keep you going with this, even in the hard times?
I'd just say probably my family. I mean, I'm the oldest of six younger siblings, and we got my youngest baby brother. He's 20 years younger than me. So I just need to be the example, the standard pretty much. And that's just, I wear that like a badge of honor. And plus, I never want them to be able to be better than me.
No, that makes sense. And that sounds like something that an older sibling might say. And you've sold gummies before, right? Because I was looking at your website and it looks like you had a previous version of the gummies that you were selling.
Yeah, we sold them before. Whenever, like I said, whenever I was just doing it for the fun of it, which we only really pushed them for 3 months, all organic, so no ad spend, no real like content creation. We did some small scale stuff, but again, it's just me and a couple of my friends just messing around, seeing what we could really do.
And why'd you decide to reformulate?
Because I got called out, not in a negative way, in a positive way. Somebody had mentioned on Facebook, I mean, not on Facebook, on LinkedIn, the dosage of the branched chain amino acids. And I'm a person that I don't like anybody to be able to say anything to me regarding anything that I'm doing. So I was like, you know what? You're right. So let me pull this back a little bit, actually get my hands dirty again, do what I need to do to where now it's like, okay, nobody can say really anything about this unless, it's something subjective, like, oh, we don't like the flavor.
Yeah.
If it's squishy, something like that. And
Yeah. And what did you learn from kind of like doing that first production run that you've been able to apply and that's maybe easier the second time around?
probably I'd say the most effective ways to communicate with your commands. So that was a really hefty process at the very beginning for me because I couldn't find anybody that would either take on the project or anybody that would do an MOQ that was low enough to make it make sense for everybody. So that whole communication, which I would put negotiation under that too, those skills that you kind of developed, and I mean they're still being formed and improved on, but those that's what I think the biggest lesson was from the very first go around.
Got it. And what was the product development process like? You told, you said a little bit about, testing the gummies. I think you said maybe in your own kitchen or whatever. And we talked to a lot of people in the food and beverage space who have that same story of kind of like formulating in the kitchen, then maybe they get like a food scientist or someone. But what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so I mean from the very beginning I was probably burning the hell out of my ingredients because I'm not a scientist or anything like that. So I was really just doing it out of the kitchen, literally sugar-free jello, how you normally make jello, and then just putting some of my branched chain amino acid powder in there and like thinking that I'm doing something great, you know? So that developed into actually going to commercial scale where we did the first product, which wasn't dosed correctly on the active side, but went through that whole process to like kind of understand what it would take to get commercialized. And then whenever we pulled it back, we actually had to hire a chemistry team. And we went through multiple rounds of this. So once we pulled the product back off market, it was an 8 month period to where we were just strictly in R&D. We had terrible samples. We had samples that were okay. We had samples that were like chalk, honestly, some that were vegan, like the whole anything that you can imagine in the gummy space, we did it with these ones. And then finally we got one that hit and we full send from there on out.
And I know you talked about this a little bit on LinkedIn, but it sounds like you don't have a co-founder. I don't think you have any full-time team members. It's more of like an advisory team that you have around you. So can you talk a little bit about the team that you have, how you built that out, and basically kind of the I guess the value they provide for you?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing to call out about my advisory board, well, a couple, it's a diverse background as far as professionally. So I have two people that are in private equity, business sales, do a lot of the stuff on, I guess you would say the bigger scale. Then we have one that's actually in the supplement industry that's behind the scenes, but very well respected, very well known. And then we have another that's actually in the gummy space. So I think that diversity is something that a lot of people don't consider whenever they're looking at an advisor board. Just it brings so many different opinions and different ways to look at stuff. It's been super beneficial. But how did I form it? So all my advisors actually had my original product. Um, Kept open lines of communication. They really actually enjoyed the product. So I was like, okay. I wasn't even thinking about doing an advisory board until one of my current actual advisors on one of my very old LinkedIn posts mentioned something about it. And then I got to thinking about it and I was like, yeah, that's super smart because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But at the same time, I kind of do. But you need them guardrails sometimes. And I knew that an advisory board would be able to do that because if you don't, sometimes your ego and all these other things will just stop you from actually succeeding and moving forward. But basically, honestly, once I thought about it, I asked them like through a message. Some of them I had their numbers, some of them I texted them through LinkedIn, and then two of them I actually met in person. Was just like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. This is the vision of the company. I actually built out a full slide deck that showed, I guess it would be synonymous to a pitch deck almost, that showed them what I'm planning on doing, where we're going to go, yada, 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 so on and so forth. Typed them up a full proposal, sent it out. And luckily everybody was like, yeah, love to be on board. And then, if you want to get into the nitty gritty, we all got different equity structures, different payment structures, but that's like all within the weeds.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is it kind of like an equity situation? Is it a paid per hour situation? How does that work in terms of compensation?
Yeah, so I pay one of my advisors per meeting. So whenever we have an official meeting, like we have everything that we need to do laid out, I pay him for that. But I also have 24-hour access to him where I can text him by phone number, whatever. Then I have another advisor that I pay monthly. And then I have my last two advisors, they don't get paid anything, but everybody involved, once we hit our sales or revenue target, they're all going to come in with equities.
And then what advice would you give to someone who is maybe a first-time entrepreneur? They're trying to build out an advisory board and they don't really know where to start.
Put in the work. I mean, I didn't even approach my advisors until I already had a product on market. So it's like they can at least sympathize or understand, like, hey, I brought it this far, but I just don't know how to get to this next step. I think that people take that a lot more. Um, there's more value in that versus just like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Will you be my advisor while I try to do it? No, because it's a waste of time. You need to execute. And then once you execute, then you can, start asking. And it's not really, I guess, not asking for favors, but asking for information, asking for their time.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And then just in general, how expensive is it to get a product like this to market?
For all of them, for if we did the first one and the second one, I'm in about 70 grand. For this newest one, we're in about 35. But if we went straight commercial, you would add another $140,000 to that. Because right now we're on small scale, so we're doing everything by hand. Commercial scale, we would have had to get custom molds, all this other stuff that's required for the bigger machines, and that just would have been a landslide of money.
And how have you funded this to date? Just your own money, basically working your 9 to 5?
Yeah, I mean my 9 to 5 pays the bills, and then creative ways. I mean, 0% credit cards for 12 to 15 months, personal loans. Thankfully, I've been able to build up a good credit score, so that's been super helpful. Know a lot of different ways working in banks and everything, how to get around stuff. So yeah, I mean, 0% credit cards, man, they do wonders.
And have you looked into raising at all? Is that something you've already considered, something you'd consider in the near future, or are you trying to bootstrap?
So there's a couple answers to this. So I give you the first one is naive me saying, hell nah, I'm never gonna raise. I'm gonna bootstrap to the moon. We're gonna do this all ourselves, yada yada yada. Then there's another answer that's realistic. Like, if we need to raise, we will raise, but it'll have to be very strategic because there's nobody that's not on my advisory board that's doing gummies or doing what we're doing at scale to where they can really come in and strategically be like, we're going to offer you so much value. So it's one of them things. I've never done a raise. I've never worked on the M&A side of stuff. So I'm not giving up a whole bunch of my company just because somebody has money. That's just not me. I'll go slow growth until I die before I give up a whole bunch of money. I mean, a whole bunch of equity for the company. And then lastly, I've had a couple people ask me if they could invest, but I don't have any data to really like show people the value of the company. Like, yeah, it looks good. It's great from the outside looking in, but realistically, we haven't moved one product yet. We don't have any, or we don't have a noteworthy email list. We don't own any digital assets yet. So it's like the only thing that you're valuing the company on right now is the SOP and the formula. And that's only going to be worth what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So let's talk about the product a little bit more. So you mentioned that you're the kind of target customer for the product. So like, what are the, I guess, attributes of the what attributes does the target customer have?
Yeah. Healthy lifestyle, honestly. I did build it for me, but I don't want to pigeonhole the product into like, oh, it has to be for bodybuilders or for athletes or for anything like that. It could honestly just be for the stay-at-home mom that doesn't want to be eating candy in front of her kids 24/7. If she wants something healthy that is going to actually provide some benefits. Maybe she walks her baby 4 or 5 miles a day outside, wants a little snack whenever she comes home. Cool. Got some muscle recovery, got some nutrient absorption, all the above. It's really like the better for you. This is the better for you candy, ideally.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I was going to ask, are there different target segments? And you kind of already hit on that, but what kind of products does this replace? You said candy, is it kind of like protein powders too? Like what products are you planning to replace, or is it more of a supplement to things that people are already doing?
Both, because I take a lot of supplements. So my pre-workout is a powder. Creatine normally for most people is a powder. Protein is a powder. If you put all three of them together, you're already at half a gallon worth of water. So it's like we wanted to provide people with the alternative delivery method to get their essential amino acids. So those are the main like three supplements that people usually take. But if you start throwing in essential amino acids, you start throwing in like an energy drink or something like that, you're at like 5 or 6 things that are powders that require, at least 8 to 12 ounces of water, sometimes even more. You're just pounding water all day, but it's not satiating, right? So what we're providing is a snack. It tastes good. There's no sugar. It's satiating, and you can replace one of your current powders with our product.
Makes sense. And then, one of the things that we always hear, because we're in a crowded space, it's basically two questions. The first one is basically what's stopping a bigger competitor from just copying you? And then also like, why haven't the bigger competitors done this already? So how would you answer those two questions?
Yeah, I think that my timing is just, honestly, I'm not even like tooting my own horn, but my timing to gummies is perfect. Creatine gummies have blew up over the last year, right? Nobody has been able to do the creatine gummies right, except for pretty much, I don't remember all of them, but Bare Balanced, the CEOs on my advisory board. It took, like I said, 8 months to get an efficacious dose into a realistic serving size for gummies. And I honestly just think that there's a lack of knowledge across the industry whenever it comes to gummies. And then also, if you talk to these bigger players, they don't want to put in the time. So if you tell one of these bigger players it's going to take 8 to 9 months, hell, it might even take you a year to even create this product. And then you have no market information about it because it's never been done. Like you're just kind of like shooting in the dark. I think that for these bigger companies, there's money to be spent in better places.
And then who are some of the big competitors in this space? Or is it not a space really where there's a ton of competition right now?
For my gummy, really none. It just boils down to consumer education, really, because there are a lot of branched chain amino acid gummies on the market, but they're kind of in that bucket of what my first product was, very underdosed. Some of them have sugar, just unnecessary, really, honestly, to where we're coming in. There's nobody on market that can even compare. You got to think my gummies are going toe to toe with powders, not all of them, but with most of them. So it's like people, they look at it, it's 1-to-1. Do we want an essential amino acid powder or do we want an essential amino acid gummy? That's what we put out there. Hopefully, it gets some good traction from the market.
Yep. And it sounds like you have a few different value propositions. So you talked about it being healthy, zero sugar, tasting good, being satiating, things like that. Do you have a sense of which of those is most important to your target consumer?
As much as I hate to say it, taste. I mean, I mean, there are the group of people that are going to turn over the package and look at the SFP and really like analyze it is going to be very slim. So that was a hard pill for me to swallow because we did put a lot of time into making sure that it is efficaciously dosed. But we're going to lead with the dosing because we want consumers to know that you can choose either or. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's a powder or a gummy. If it does not taste good, consumers are not going to buy it, and they're going to let you know that it is terrible.
And where are you planning to sell it? Are you doing direct to consumer? Are you doing retail? Are you doing Amazon? Maybe a mix of a couple of those or all of those?
So we're just going to do direct to consumer to start off with. There's a lot of operational stuff that we need to stand up before we can go Amazon or retail because being bootstrapped, I cannot afford to be paying fees for out of stock or any type of logistics mishap or anything like that. So just run it out of our own current operating model and then upgrade once we start getting real traction.
And then what's the price that you're planning on charging? And I guess like, are there multiple pouches that people get? How are you kind of like selling them and how much does it cost?
Yeah, so to come out the gate, we're gonna do 30 servings for $60. So that's the only one that we have right now. I have considered doing a smaller pack just so people can actually get into it or see if they like it, but it's super non-efficient to come out the gate with, like a 7-day pack or something like that.
And then in terms of price, is that going to be a premium or is that kind of in line with other products on the market?
I would say it's a premium, but it also depends on if you look at the competitors or something that's similar, right? So you look at Alani Nu, they have their gummies, Smart Sweets, Shameless Snacks. They all run around 270, $3 per serving. We're at $2 per serving. Well, plus shipping, so we might be like $2.10. And I think that we're going to do free shipping, so I don't even think you have to really factor that one in. So we're a premium product, but if are we premium priced? Kind of depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. And where do you produce the product? Where, like, how'd you find the manufacturer? Where's the manufacturer? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we manufacture right now out of Kentucky currently. Whenever we go commercial, it'll probably be out of Colorado. That's where most of the big players are at. The person that I'm going through right now was a connection of my advisor.
And then how did you, because I would assume that like with this industry, like any other industry, there's a lot of specific things that you have to know before you start a company in it. So how'd you get smart on some of these different things in the gummy industry? Was it just doing your own research? Did you manage to maybe find mentors early on in the process? Just how did you basically learn enough about this industry to launch a product in it?
Yeah, I mean the first launch that we did, honestly, I didn't know anything. Just going in there super blind, which I mean I think that's a part of the process. You don't know what you don't know. So that whole process was me just learning at least the basics. And then that's kind of why I pulled my advisory board in once we decided that, it was time to actually see if we could take this to the next level. From there, just a lot of time, a lot of conversations spent talking to them, talking to my chemistry team, talking to suppliers, reading, research. Like it was a combination of really all the above. I mean, because I learn something new every day still. Like I'm not a vet by any means. I'm still very, very rookie, very fresh meat.
Do you feel like being an outsider kind of in the industry, does that help you in some ways?
I'd say yeah, because I'm super naive. I don't think there's anything that anybody from industry can tell me that we can't do.
Yeah.
Anybody that has an ingredient, I mean, whenever we talk to them about it, it's like most actives that you guys or that are in the industry are nowhere they're either one extreme. They're either nowhere near 6.7 grams or they're 40 grams, you know. So like obviously we'll never get a full serving of whey protein into 4 gummies. Like that's just impossible. But anything that's like 300 milligrams, 3 grams, 4 grams, 5 grams, you know, I don't think that there's any of those ingredients that my team can't put in a gummy. And I've told everybody that.
You know, I would assume that branding is going to be pretty important, like building a brand around the product. So how are you thinking about doing that, brand building in general?
Yeah, so we got a couple ways. So we redid the full customer experience. So the first one, the first product that I have, here were a couple mistakes that I realized was how we were shipping them because the gummies would get smashed or they would get really hot, and then the packaging. So revamp that whole thing. The customer experience was kind of like the very first thing that I did, even before I knew if we were going to be able to come to market with the gummy. So now we're shipping out in all brand new premium boxes. We got some super nice packaging, and just it gives the consumer more to see and feel. So like they have the box, they have the packaging. Hell, I still use some of my boxes that I have from some supplement companies. So that was the first thing. The next thing that we're going to do is we're considering using ambassadors or kind of like the influencer. I haven't really decided how I feel on that, but that's one of the things that we're doing. And then we also revamped our full website, our emails, flows, all that type of stuff. Now, there may be some other things, you know, we're going to do some ads. I don't know if that's really like building the brand, but some static ads, stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really going to be about visibility because once you put it out there, or if people don't know what it is, you can't sell it. So I think that getting visibility and that will just build the brand overall.
Yep, that makes sense. So have you been trying to kind of get your product and company on the radar of potential customers during this pre-launch phase, or are you waiting until basically every box is ticked in terms of kind of building some of those relationships?
So yeah, I mean, the people at my gym, you know, there are some people that have got some of the samples and everything, but the key focus to me so far, which I'm probably doing it backwards, was more like the professionals within the space. So like, I got a lot of respect for a lot of people that are out here doing it good. And then, you know, I think that a lot of people, they might not like the product, but at least they, you know, they respect the work. So, you know, meeting them, getting their feedback, asking if we can send them samples and stuff like that, I think has been more my target. I need to kind of switch over to the consumer because, I mean, at the end of the day, not every professional is going to buy it or even promote it or anything, but the consumer is going to really have to be my best friend probably these next couple months.
Yep. And then in terms of launch strategy, is it basically kind of like paid ads, influencers, ambassadors? Is there anything else that factors into that strategy, or are those the main things?
Me, I mean, honestly, I need to get out of my own way and just start doing my own content. I mean, I look like a tank 24/7, 365. So I'm just really in my own way on that. But a combination of all those plus the addition of my own content. Cause I mean, I think that influencers and everything are cool and great and everything, but nobody can push a product like the owner.
So how are you thinking about that? What kind of content do you think you're going to put out?
I don't even know, man. I've been doing like a small like road to CEO series on TikTok. I've been doing a weekly like update on TikTok, you know, off season versus on season, um, and really doing more stuff like this, podcasts and stuff. But you know, I need to push myself out of that comfort zone of, you know, being behind and consuming the content and actually creating the content. So
Yeah. Do you want to be the face of the brands? Like in an ideal world, would it be something where it's just completely product focused and you're in the background, or do you like kind of like being that face of the brand?
I do like being the face of the brand, but what I don't like doing is, for one, recording in the gym. I'm just not a fan of it. I like to go to the gym to work out. I was working out before I started doing this, so I don't really want to interfere or cross over those. But at the same time, it's like get over yourself. Like you kind of have to if you want to do this. So I don't really know. I don't really know, man. It might be a mix of everything because I feel like I am representation for people that look like me on this side, on the business side. So I would personally rather put out like educational content or like lifestyle content that actually relates to that because I feel like we already have enough good influence on as far as like health, wellness, bodybuilding. I mean, Sebum is the thing. I'm pretty sure he's the only one that's like really up there, top notch, that isn't, that doesn't look like us.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions in terms of, I guess, like how you identify or whatever, but I would say we look pretty similar, right? So, how has it been kind of being in this industry or like, in the startup space, being someone who looks like us?
It's been interesting. So my full advisory, I identify as black and white. My full advisory board is white. It's eye opening. I wouldn't say it's discouraging because I don't know. I'm just a go getter, so like it doesn't really phase me at all if there's a whole bunch of people that look like me or if there's no people that look like me. Because at the end of the day, I'm me, so I'm either gonna make it off the strength of my own or I'm not gonna make it at all. And nothing stopped me this far, so hell.
Yeah, so I guess how do you think about that? Because that's something I think about too. There's almost like two distinct followings that I have. There's people who are just interested in me as like a first time founder, as a black person trying to build a business, things like that. And then there's other people who are interested in my product, and maybe they care a little bit about what I'm doing on the personal side, but really they care about the product. So how do you think about building almost two distinct audiences? Because it sounds like you're kind of doing the same thing where you have people in the gummy space or the exercise space who are interested in what you're doing, but at the same time you want to be an example to people who look like us. So how do you think about kind of juggling both of those things?
I think, transparency. I mean, as long as I'm the face of the brand still, I think that it kind of aligns both to one strategy. Um, I don't ever plan to hide behind my brand and let somebody else be the face of it. So I think that that kind of crosses all the boxes there. And then I've been transparent this whole time, and I plan to continue to be transparent. So I think that that kind of checks the box on the professional side because there's enough copycats out here. There's enough of the fake stuff. So I try to keep it as real as possible, but professional because I am holding more than just my reputation on the line right now.
And then what are your thoughts on building in public? Because I've been thinking about that a lot recently, and I'm starting to think I'm kind of out on it. And I've been thinking about changing up my strategy. But like you're one of my favorite people to follow on LinkedIn in terms of seeing what you're building. So what are your thoughts on that? Where's your head at right now on building in public?
I like it. I like it because it just adds fuel to my fire. Either you're hating and that shit turns me up, or you love it and that turns me up too. So either way, it's a win-win in my book because I like when people doubt me. So whenever people was telling me that the gummy couldn't be done, it's like okay, now it's done. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, that might be an ego thing or something, but
No, I'm
I,
the same way. I'm the same way. I think it is an ego thing, but I have like a list in my head of the people where if it's successful, like these are the people. I'm not going to literally reach out to them, but in my head, I'll be like, yeah, I proved you wrong. You said this was a bad idea or it couldn't be done, and we've done it. So I feel the
yeah,
same way.
yeah. I mean, on the other end of the stick, I take my losses with grace too. So my first product was a loss. I took that with grace, and now I'm back, baby.
So how was Expo West?
Overwhelming, honestly. If I ever do another one, I will be hiring a VA before the month before. I will make a list of people that I guaranteed 100% want to meet or at least have an interaction with, and I will plan every meeting for every minute of the day because there were like 50, 60,000 people. And I thought I was like, oh, I'll just walk around and I'm going to run into somebody. Hell no. There's like 7 floors, 7,000 vendors. Yeah, no way.
Did you go wanting to meet specific people and you're kind of like planning to run into them or no?
Yeah, yeah. There were three people.
And
The
you didn't have a booth, right? You're just walking around.
Yeah, I was just walking around.
Got it. So yeah, I've never really seen any behind the scenes content or anything like that, but I saw the number of people who went this year and it's crazy. So that definitely makes sense that you'd have to kind of like have a plan. And I would assume that you'd almost have to like reach out to people ahead of time, right? If you wanted to get time with them, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of last minute scheduling on my end. Because I knew that there were a lot of people that were coming. I knew that I needed to get in front of them. Some of them had booths. If they had a booth, they were very easy to get in front of because you just walk over to them, especially the
Yeah.
people that I was talking to, like ingredient suppliers and all that stuff. Like the average consumer or the normal person that, well, this was from my perspective, the average person that goes to Expo West is not going and talking to somebody that supplies an ingredient.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not the fun, cute stuff that you can go. Why would you go talk to somebody that's bringing an ingredient whenever you can go over here and try the new flaming hot Cheeto? You know. So
Yeah.
thankfully for me, I was able to get in front of the people that I really needed to get in front of. I just couldn't run into the people that I wanted to run into.
Yeah. Was there a focus on networking with other founders or not so much?
Not so much on the founder scale because I think that we're all on our own different mission. But it was important to me to get in front of the people that have been helping me accomplish this mission. So all my ingredient suppliers, people that have been supporting me on LinkedIn and other avenues, uh, potential people that want me to put their ingredient in gummies, like all that type of stuff. So it's like a little bit of networking with some founders as I pass by them, and if the people that I was already with introduced me, but it wasn't like something that I needed to go do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then just kind of like thinking bigger picture, what's your long-term vision for this company?
Yeah, I mean, if I could have a perfect world, it would go like this. So next year, 2 years, we crush it with the essential amino acid gummy, extend our line to some new ingredients that we have in the pipeline, kind of, tossing out in the air, see if we can get any bites. And then, once we cross that $1 to $2 million revenue threshold, probably merge with my advisor's company and then really just dominate sports nutrition gummies. Really almost monopolize it, honestly.
And so the extensions would all be within gummies. Would you consider any other types of product other than gummies or no?
At the time, currently, I don't see us going outside of gummies unless there's an actual need. Because, like I said, there are so many powder companies out here that are phenomenal. Like if you went and looked in my pantry of all my supplements, you're gonna see at least 7 to 10 different brands. So I just don't see any point in doing it. What I would rather do is either partner or license with those companies to where it's more like a joint venture instead of, this and that. Like hypothetically, Ghost, they have their Ghost Gamer, esports, whatever. Ghost Gamer, Ghost Gummies. It just makes more sense like that to me.
Yep.
Both nootropics, or we can do one for energy, we can do one for nootropic in a cool custom made box. Nobody else would have it. It's kind of like a no-brainer to me, but you know how that gets sticky whenever you start talking to people about certain things.
Yeah. So if you are super successful, you feel like the secret sauce is kind of formulation. Would that be right to say or no?
Yeah. Team building. That's my secret sauce. Team,
Yeah.
put together a team. Because I don't know science and I don't fully know the gummy world before I put my team together and before I put my science team together. Then I marry both of them together. And then now the only thing I'm doing is funding and leading the mission and making sure the stuff's getting done.
And would you consider a subscription for this product or no?
Yeah, so we're gonna consider a subscription once we actually have the operations ready on the back end. What I don't want to do is jump into a subscription model, and then by month three, you know, whenever people are looking for their product, well, now we're sold out because we don't have the correct operations and space in place. So we're being very strategic because we want to move fast, but we don't want to move too fast because we have to maintain the customer experience, the expectations, and our prestige.
And would you consider being acquired down the road, or is that not something that you're interested in?
It had to be a fat deal. Like it would have to be so much money because this is my baby. You know, I would have to be tired of it. It would have to be a lot of money, or it would just have to make sense. Like if somebody wanted to acquire us, and then I come in as like not necessarily a co-CEO, but maybe like a CIO or a COO, something like that, keep me on the C-suite to where I actually have pull, I would consider it.
So is the current thought that this is kind of what you do for the rest of your career, or maybe until you're, I don't know, in your 40s, 50s, whatever it is?
Man, hell, I don't know. I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
I like doing this. This is what, I have fun doing this. So until I stop having fun with it, I'm probably going to keep doing it or until it fails.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. So these last questions, usually we do them rapid fire, but we have a decent amount of time, so we could do up to like 30 seconds or a minute per question.
Okay.
So what is one thing that keeps you up at night about this business?
Oh, failing. I mean, nobody wants to fail. I don't think so. I mean, you constantly think about that. You think about how you can improve on certain things, um, anything related that might be seen as negative. Those always keep you thinking.
So how do you deal with those? Because I feel the same, I feel like there's this kind of like black cloud of failure that's always over me, and I'm like trying to run away from it, but it's always there because what, like 90% of startups fail or whatever. So how do you deal with that feeling? How do you kind of assure yourself that either you're not going to fail, or even if you do fail, it's going to be okay?
Just go look at myself in the mirror and remind myself who I am.
Yeah, I like that. So what's been your biggest learning thus far in your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, the biggest learning. Oh, that's a tough one. Um, I would probably say the biggest learning is accepting that everybody is not going to support you. Everybody that you thought was going to support you is not going to support you. And that sounds super cliche, but it is like until you're in it, you don't really understand that learning process of that, and accepting that, okay, yeah, I'm doing sports nutrition, but I don't have my closest five friends are not into nutrition, into any of this, into whatever. So it's like I don't take it personally if they never buy my product because at the end of the day, they're not my target consumer. So I think that learning that, if the sooner you learn that, the faster you go.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like you can't look for validation. You can't look to like friends and family necessarily for validation. You want to look to, or even like your LinkedIn network, you want to be looking to your target customer for validation because that's who matters at the end of the day. So, what's been the hardest part so far for you?
Um, for me, just taking the risk. I mean, I'm dumping a lot of money into this, and don't get me wrong, like I can survive, but I'm not like Bill Gates just rolling in dough over here. So I think that you know, putting them credit card numbers in, putting that cash down, that's been the hardest part. But now I think that like it's one of the things once you do it with reps, it gets easier, but it's still like I could have went and did this, I could have went on vacation, like all these other, you always have them thoughts in your mind like, oh,
Yeah, yep. So, what's been the most rewarding part?
probably, whenever I went out to California, I went with my dad. So my grandpa lives in California, I took both of them to meet one of my advisors. And it's just interesting because nobody in my family is like an entrepreneur or anything like that. So giving them the experiences, to be able to see me, not just talk business, but the relationships that I've made and maintained over time, I think that's been the most fulfilling part.
And then what's a success look like for you, either with this business, entrepreneur, and life in general? What does success look like?
The how many people you put in it in a position to win. So it's like I can win all by myself, but I don't think that I'd be successful unless I put other people in positions to win. Maybe not as much, or maybe not even as close to as much as I win, but at least in their respective space to win. So it's like I'll give you an example. One of my closest friends, he's a graphic designer. He's done all my artwork. Paid him like nothing done free. Paid him whatever. But now all my portfolio is in his portfolio. Now take it however you want it, but I mean that means something to me. So I think that that alone is what defines success to me.
And what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started out?
It's gonna be a lot harder than you think, boy. No, I feel like that's an easy answer. Operations is really what makes the company go around. I think that in social media and everything, everybody wants to be the CEO, the founder, and all this other stuff. But realistically, like hats off to the COOs, the operators, all those people, because that's really what makes everything move. Like sales and all that doesn't move without operations. Execution doesn't move without operations. Nothing moves without operations.
And what's maybe one mistake that you made that you've learned from throughout this process?
Don't take the first bid or negotiate. Um, Whenever you start looking at bigger projects and harder stuff, I think that I wouldn't say people take advantage, but I think that people like to exploit not only young professionals, but people that haven't, you know, don't fully understand the scope, I guess would be the better term. So that would probably be the biggest thing for me.
And then what advice do you have for either aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who are very early on in the process?
Get your money right. And what I mean by that is have a 9 to 5. You don't have to like it, you don't have to love it, but if it pays you enough money for you to invest in yourself or in your business, you keep it. Also, same thing with your credit. Don't go into a whole bunch of credit card debt because that's going to be a silent killer that you'll never understand until you're at the point where you might need an extra $5,000. You might need an extra $10,000 or something. You can't easily obtain it. Then you're just going to be floating in the water.
What do you think about those people? Because I see a lot of people say this on LinkedIn, sometimes on podcasts or whatever. They basically say like you're not going to be successful if you're trying to start a business while you have a full-time job. Like you have to quit and go all in, otherwise you're not going to be successful.
I agree to a certain point. So if I was in the position that I'm in right now, in a studio apartment, the only person that depended on Trystin was Trystin. Whenever we launch, I would probably highly consider, quitting my job. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people only say that because they don't go the what I would consider the hard mode. They don't bootstrap. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to play with somebody else's money, raise money. Oh yeah, we raised $1 million. I'm paying myself a livable salary. You really don't have no pressure. Bootstrappers, on the other hand, okay, go out there and play if you want. Quit your job if you want. As long as you realize that it's your ass on the line, then do what you do. But I wouldn't advise for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel like I should have, or anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, I mean I think this is a good podcast. Shout out to my mom and dad, all my supporters.
So, so where can people find you? And is there just anything you want to plug right before we end?
Yeah, LinkedIn is where I'm most active, just by my name, Trystin Nance. Instagram, Trystin Nance. All my socials are just my name. And yeah,
Cool, man. Well, I'll look forward to that, and I'm sure I'll keep interacting with you on LinkedIn, and maybe we'll talk again sometime soon.
sounds good.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on. It was fun.
No problem, man. Anytime.
See you, dude.